Wow, super fit.
And now, let's all welcome the host of today's Wellness and Longevity episode, Top Wellness, Danny Kinko.
Hi, everyone. I'm here, Talk Wellness, Danny Quinto. And for this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about one thing that's very important to all of us regarding wellness and longevity. And it's all about food. And so I'm sure, as I mentioned, that food, most of you or all of you have your own ideas about what food to eat, what food not to eat, so that we will get well and live longer and healthier lives. Before I do so, let me give a very short background on me, Danny Quinto, okay? Right now, I'm already 70 years old, or young. And that's my chronological age. I've been born of goodly parents, and I'm married to Florence Quinto and have two wonderful children. They're part of this wellness movement. When I was in college, I took up a Bachelor of Science in Physics at the University of the Philippines in Diliman. I've also studied sports nutrition and fitness under the direction of a lecturer from the United States Sports Academy. And throughout all of my years, I've always maintained for the last, let me say, from last 35 years of my chronological age, I maintained a very healthy lifestyle. I watch the food that I eat and I make sure I do fitness exercises every day. So at this chronological age of mine, which is 70, I'm in perfect health, as close to perfect health as possible. I have no complaints. I don't have any maintenance medicines. I don't see any doctors. And my maintenance is fitness and food and other things that makes you well and live to a longer and a healthier life. And so let me dive right in to the topic that I have chosen for this episode, which is all about food. Now, when I say food, then definitely what comes into your mind? I'm sure many things come into your mind. Some of you might be thinking of something that's nutritious, something that's delicious, something that looks great on the dinner table, or something that makes you well? Well, definitely, I think one of the best definitions of food, if we're talking of wellness, actually was given by the father of modern medicine, which is Hippocrates. Hippocrates. And he was quoted as saying, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine thy food." Now, there's no better definition of that. He is equating basically food as medicine. And many times during this modern era, we tend to forget it already because of the many abundant food that we have. Many hundreds of years ago, food was not easily, you might say, taken, especially during the early hunter gatherer eras that we had thousands of years ago. Men then and women definitely had to walk many miles, estimated 13 to 15 miles a day, just to look for food. They never grew their crops. All they did was eat what was available there. If there's a tree there and there's some fruit, then they could take it. And if there's some wild animals, they just go and hunt it down. And that's how they got the food. But nowadays, our food is basically manufactured. It's basic commercial, but we ask ourselves, is that the best kind of food that we should be taking into our life? Can it make me wealthy? I mean, healthy. Can it make me healthy? Well, let me answer it this way. Now, although I said talk wellness, that's my moniker, I am not a medical doctor, okay? And so throughout my life, I've lived a healthy life. I've experienced this, but I've done a lot of research. As you can see in my background, there's a lot of books. I have more than 2,000 books in my library, and most of it actually is on health, on nutrition, on wellness, on longevity, and on self-improvement books. And through the last 30 years, I've read and absorbed a lot of this data from leading scientists, leading doctors, uh, leading personalities in the field of nutrition. And so what we're going to be focusing on this episode is food as medicine, basically as nutrition. I've had the good opportunity to read the works of Dr. Deepak Chopra, Dr. Andrew Weil, uh, T. Colin Campbell, the author of the China Study, well, Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. This is one of the early books that I've read that basically changed my direction in my wellness. Okay, and others that includes current doctors like Dr. David Sinclair and Dr. Joe Dispenza. So there's a lot going on, and there have been a lot already of studies that have gone on before, which by the research and by putting things together, they have come up with theories on why people age, why people get sick, why people are healthy, and why people live for a long time, still active and still healthy. One of the good books that I've read was done by a National Geographic researcher named Dan Beutner. He was given the assignment to go around the world to locate specific locations wherein you could find a high percentage of centenarians. And so in doing so, he identified basically 5 areas. I think that's one of the best researches that has been done with regards to wellness. They are Okinawa in Japan, Icaria in Greece, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and Loma Linda, California. And so if you go to those places, a large percentage of the population are aging 90, 100, and more than 100. And if you look at them, according to Dan Beutner, they're still very healthy. It seems that they could live for quite a long time. So what he did was to identify what were the factors which made these people live healthier and live longer lives. She identified, I think, 9 factors from there. And from that, I read all of his books. Actually, I digested them. And many of the factors that he has mentioned there, I have been doing it for my life, in my life. And so I was just amazed. So I said, well, basically, that's the reason why I still have very good health right now. Although I don't live in an island. 4 of those areas are basically islands. So the only exception there is Loma Linda, California. So it's in the middle of a metropolis. But many of those factors I've incorporated, I've researched it, I've incorporated it in a book that I'm about to publish, including other researches from eminent authors to come up with some factors, basically. I call them hidden secrets, because for many, they're quite secrets actually, because many of us do not know uh, why some are healthy and some are ill. They're even twins. One is very healthy, the other one gets ill and dies earlier. And so those researches and inspirations have led me to write a book. First, it will be an ebook, which I'll publish next month, and later on, it will be a hardcover. And I hope that you are watching this on YouTube will get a copy of it. And I can, so basically what I did there is collate all of them, integrate the latest ideas from ancient traditional practices. Like, for example, the Ayurveda practices of India. And there are many tribal practices that, when looked at from our modern perspective, they were quite effective. And so I've studied them. I've also studied alternative medicine, mainly integrative medicine, and what they're calling now as functional medicine. Integrative medicine, if I understand it right, was started by Dr. Andrew Weil way back in the 1970s in Tucson, Arizona. He's an American doctor. He practices what he preaches, and I've read most of his books. I've digested them, internalized them, and I have made it my lifestyle. And so the ones that I'm going to be talking to you about, I have already incorporated it in my own life. And so with all of those, including the modern cutting edge researches being done by scientists and doctors nowadays, I will include them in my book. And so I digested it, put it as part of my experience, and I'm going to share it with all of you. Part of those who are doing this current cutting edge research includes Dr. David Sinclair and Dr. Joe Dispenza. They're talking about experiments that they have done, which you may be amazed is in the next few years will probably help everybody, you might say, live healthier lives, longer and healthier lives. Okay? So much for that background. Now, a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking to you today comes from the thoughts of Dr. William Li. I've also read his material, I've ingested it, and let me share some of the things that he has to say, including what I learned from Harvey Diamond from his book, Fit for Life. Now, let me go into this first, okay? Some years ago, I think that was around 30 years ago, I came across this book, and right there at the headlines says it was a New York Times bestseller. So whenever I see a book which has in its headline fit, I'm attracted to it right away, because one of the things that I do in my life is make sure that I'm as fit as a fiddle. Okay? Yeah. And so when I read that book, you might say it blew my mind, it got my attention, because he was talking about fruits as the best food that we can eat. We humans can eat. And basically the reason why he said is it contains all of the nutrients that our body needs without taking too much energy from digesting it, because basically it's pre-digested. It has all of the enzymes that our body needs to digest that food. Okay, and if taken in the correct time, which is from 4 in the morning to 12 noon, which he calls the elimination phase. So he's telling about the cycle that we undergo every day for digestion and elimination. So from 4 in the morning to 12 noon is our elimination phase, wherein our body is naturally eliminating. And from 12 noon to 8 in the evening is our intake phase, when our body is programmed for food. And from 8 in the evening to 4 in the morning, that's the assimilation phase, when all of the things that have been digested, they're now processed, and from our intestine, it is now distributed through our blood system into all parts of the body, including the brain, including oxygen there. And if we can time our eating habits based on that cycle, definitely the success will be a lot healthier. And I would agree with him. Because you know what? One of the basic lifestyle changes that I made was actually eating fruits in the morning. I have done that for the last more than 30 years. So my breakfast is just fruits. Why fruits? Because it doesn't interfere too much with the elimination system. Second, it contains two items there that you need for daily detoxification. Because our body is just like an engine. It needs to get detoxified so it can function properly and very efficiently. It needs fiber and water. Basically, there are only two kinds of food that have water and fiber. They are plant foods. One is fruits, the other is vegetables. And so if a lot of the food that we eat are plant-based, then definitely we will be a lot healthier. And that's what Dr. William Li has focused on, because he is one of the leading scientists and doctors, because he's a doctor, but he was more focused on this already in angiogenesis. Okay. And he tells us that basically we have a defense system in our body. And it has 5 factors, basically, our defense system. The first one, he talks of angiogenesis. Now, what's angiogenesis? Basically, it's the ability of our body to construct or make new blood vessels. Now, that's a good thing to know, right? So you can develop new blood vessels going all around our body. But at the same time, there's a downside to it. There should be a time when you can limit it, and there should not be a time when it goes on and on. And that's when a cancer cell develops, and they develop it together with a new blood vessel. They take that route, and so we don't want that. So there should be a balance between creating and stopping the creation of new blood vessels. And you know what? According to his research, one of the best ways of putting balance in our angiogenesis is actually eating more plant-based food. That's what I told you, right? And so basically, he treats food as medicine, like the ancient father of modern medicine. Let food be thy medicine, and medicine thy food. Okay, so it affects angiogenesis. It keeps it in balance. It doesn't go replicating all of the time, and that's what feeds the cancer cells. The second one is stem cells. Now, stem cells have lately been in the news. I think for the last 5 or 6 years, I keep hearing about stem cells. And when I got into it, I found out that we started as stem cells. A stem cell is basically a cell that doesn't have a function yet. It is like a generic cell. Okay? So it can become, this cell can be for your nose, it can be for your liver, it can become part of your eyes, become part of your ears, become part of your heart, your kidney, your muscles. And so later on, they'll be differentiated. But everything starts out as a stem cell. Now, under the command of our body's intelligence, after on, they had to differentiate and go into their program place. Okay, they have to go to your liver, they become a liver cell. Okay, now, around, according to him, around 700,000 of these do not differentiate. And so they just remain as stem cells. They stay in different parts of our body, including our bones. Now, these have to be replenished quite regularly because after some time, of course, they die, they expire. And therein lies the problem. Because if you don't have a regular supply of stem cells, and if a body gets injured or a body needs upgrading, you might say, a stem cell has to be directed to go there. But his researchers also point to the fact that the best way of making sure your stem cells are always stocked is eat more plant-based food. Now there we go again. Plant-based food. We're always getting to plant-based food. And what harms it, what harms the production of stem cells is drinking a lot of alcohol, diabetes, high blood sugar, stress, of course, and many other things that are injurious to our own health. So what pushes it is a plant-based diet. He talks about the Mediterranean diet. Basically, the Mediterranean diet has a big percentage of plant-based food, including some fish right there, a few red wine, but there's a lot of fruits, there's a lot of vegetables, herbs, and nuts. Did you know that nuts contain a lot of nutrients that are good for our body? And so that includes it actually. Okay? And so for stem cells, part of our defense system, plant-based food is number one. The third one is, which is getting into the news nowadays actually, is our microbiome. If that sounds like a new word to you, it's just talking about our gut. Did you know that our body contains a lot of fungi, a lot of bacteria, a lot of micro living things that in our body, especially in our gut, it contains millions and millions of these very tiny organisms. Now, they have found out that if we can maintain a healthy flora, a healthy colony of these beneficial microbiomes, then it will help in our digestion, it can ward off diseases, and therefore it can make us healthier. There are, of course, microbiomes that are bad for our health. And those ones proliferate if we have a very unhealthy lifestyle. Like I mentioned a while ago, a lot of stress, a lot of alcohol, a lot of smoking, a lot of things that are injurious to our health, a lot of time without sleep. And so the good bacteria there is destroyed. Definitely, if one eats a lot of acidic food, and a lot of our food nowadays, modern food, is very acidic. But not when you consume a lot of fruits and vegetables. So you talk of prebiotics and probiotics. Now, probiotics are your microbiome. These are the microscopic cells that are there, the microscopic fungi that and bacteria that are in our gut. Now, prebiotics are the things that these probiotics or microbiome consume. And the best prebiotics actually are all plant-based food. So if the more plant-based food that you eat, the better chances you have of developing that good bacteria inside your gut. And if that is developed there, then you'll be a lot healthier. Okay? So that's what modern science is telling us. And so one of the things we can do aside from those is probably drink yogurt, or how do you call that, kefir or kimchi, some things that are fermented, because if they're fermented already, that's when they can manufacture a lot of these probiotics. All right, so microbiomes, plant-based food. The next one is our DNA. Now that has been familiar to us, especially since we were still in grade school and even in high school, even in college. Okay, DNA. Now, you have to think of DNA as our genetic blueprint, more like an operating system. So if you have a computer, you have an operating system there. So it controls the functions of your computer. And so the DNA, which was discovered some years ago by Watson and Crick, who were awarded the Nobel Prize for it, is basically our blueprint. From there, we can replicate these cells based on this blueprint. And so you might say, so if we have a blueprint for wellness, why then do we develop illness? Why do we get sick? Why do we have to age? Right? But the thing is, even DNA can mutate actually. They're finding out that DNA can mutate. It can change shape. Some of those things that are encoded there can be cut off. It can mutate into other things and cause a lot of problems in us. Some of these things include, like the previous ones, too much alcohol, drugs, cholesterol, stress. Did you know that too much sunlight can actually mutate the cells, especially in the skin? And so what's our answer? How do we boost and make sure that our DNA, not a lot of it gets mutated? The simple answer there is eat more plant-based food. Now, if they are organic, it's a lot better actually. Organic meaning the plant has grown on soil that is not chemical fertilizers, but those have natural microbes in them, natural, what do you call this? The natural fertilizer, organic fertilizers, where it can get its nutrients. So if you're looking at a plant, basically, you're looking at a factory that gets materials from the soil and from sunlight to manufacture all of these phytonutrients. And I've also found in research that, did you know that plants, they get stressed. They also get stressed actually by the weather, by a lot of sunlight, by a lot of wind, typhoons, and other things that create stress. And so over the years, they have developed a system whereby they can take care of this stress. So it's already part of their system. And so when we take in a leaf from an organic plant, we actually are ingesting their defense system. Because if they're stressed and they can overcome it, when we take it, then definitely we're taking something which can help us also defeat the stresses of everyday life. So that's what happens. In my book, I'll be explaining it more in detail because I'll be going into quantum theory, quantum physics, so I can explain it a lot better. But for now, let me tell you that the more stressed the food, the better actually. So if a plant food is grown in a very serene environment, you can still get a lot of vitamins and minerals and the phytonutrients. But if it is grown in the wild, where nobody's taking care of it, it's exposed to nature, it has actually more nutrients, more defense fighting nutrients. Now take, for example, a wild blueberry that is growing there in Alaska, exposed to all of that stress, the freezing cold, the icy winds. Then you compare it with a blueberry growing in a farm somewhere it's always sunny. They have different nutritional contents. So the one grow in the wild, and it is basically organic, contains more nutrients because it is more stressed. Okay? So stress is good, of course, up to a certain point, right? So to strengthen and make sure that our DNA is not too damaged, eat more plant-based food, especially if it's organic, especially if it is wild. All right, that's what we learned, and I hope you're learning something from this. Okay. Now the fifth one is our immunity or our immune system. I'm sure all of us have heard this already. Our immune system, which is, if you like to look at it, it can contain actually the first four. Is not just one system, but it covers all parts of the body because the body communicates with each other. The brain, okay, of course, commands come from there, but did you know that our gut, they actually communicate back to our brain? So a lot of the commands and a lot of the responses come actually from our gut, and they communicate with our brain. And so they're even calling the gut is another brain that we have, right? And so the body is really a wonderful. I hope I do not degrade it by calling it a machine, because if we can compare it to a machine, it's a very amazing machine. And you know what? It is my belief that there is nothing that we can invent, that man can invent, that can equal or surpass our body. There is none. Okay, despite all of these modern discoveries, there is none. And so we should be thankful, good friends, for our God given body, a body given to us by higher consciousness, a higher power. And therefore, I would also suggest that one of the things that you can do every day is to thank your body, thank your creator, thank our creator, and thank our body, our liver, our kidney, our heart, our eyes, our ears, and everything that are our muscles. Did you know that ancient tradition and basic scriptures, they tell us that the body is a temple of God, right? Have you ever been in a temple? It's a place which is supposed to be sacred, okay? You only speak there of spiritual things. And so you have to keep it clean because it's something that's sacred. And so one of the things that we should keep in mind is we need to make sure that our body is treated like a temple. If you ingest alcohol, you're desecrated in a temple. If you smoke, if you do drugs, if you stress it, if you do not give it the proper kind of sleep that it needs, you're not treating it as a temple. And so it also tells us that if we do not treat a temple with the proper care that it needs, Him will God destroy. And that's why we have many of these modern diseases, because we don't take care of our body. We eat foods that are injurious not only to us, but did you know it's injurious to the environment? That's for another episode. I will not have time to be discussing it now. But there have been some, you might say, movements here, modern movements. One of them is being pioneered by Dr. William Lee. And he's trying to put food science and adding medicine science and putting them together. And somehow there's been a movement and they're calling it functional medicine. I think that's a very good development. There's a wellness revolution brewing, and I aim to be a part of it, to share what I know and what I've experienced to you, my good friends in YouTube. Now, one of the things that I'd like to quote before I end is from the China Study, a book done by T. Colin Campbell, PhD, and Thomas M. Campbell, his son. They're calling this the one of the best and most important books on nutrition ever written. I digested it, and let me just share with you some of the conclusions of T. Colin Campbell. So what they did was actually to do a research on 65 villages in China way back in the 1970s, when China was not yet modernized. They looked at the eating habits, the nutrition that these people, the Chinese, were having then, and compared it with the standard American diet. And it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be amazed on what was the conclusion. They concluded that because of the diet of these Chinese during that time, they were free from a lot of the chronic illnesses that modern people are prone to today, because they ate mostly plant-based food. Now, principle number 6. This one is in page 236 of his book, 200, The China Study. Now, he says, let me just read it, okay? The same nutrition that prevents disease in its early stages before diagnosis can also halt or reverse disease in its later stages. So the same, can you imagine that? If I eat, and basically he's talking here of plant-based food. If I eat these kinds of plants, and because of that, I am now quite healthy, and I can tell you, I'm quite fit and healthy, my friends. If I can prevent those diseases, meaning if ever I get that disease, all I need to do is just eat that same kind of food that prevented it in the first place. And he says it can reverse this disease in its later stages, meaning after diagnosis. Wow, right? And this is a monumental study. Now, principle number 7 also states that nutrition that is truly beneficial for one chronic disease will support health across the board. Okay, and so if you're talking of a chronic disease like that, diabetes, if you're talking of nutrition just to prevent and reverse diabetes, it can also affect your cardiovascular system, your digestive system, your mental system. It can affect it all. Okay, wonderful news, right? Secrets. Principle number 8, good nutrition creates health in all areas of our existence. All parts are interconnected. So that's connected with principle number 7. If you increase the health area in one of your systems, you affect all of the other areas, basically. And so I would like to think, my good friends, that plant-based food is one of the keys to wellness and longevity. It has been proven in ancient times, and modern research is bringing it out actually. So much so that there have been doctors who previously were talking about just illnesses. They're doing the regular diagnostics and using pharmaceuticals. And many of them shifted already to another kind of discipline. They're calling it integrative medicine, and they're calling it functional medicine, wherein they have blended ancient and modern researches together with their former things that they have learned in medical school. Okay? And I think that's good news for all of us, because what comes out of it will always be for our own good. Once it's disseminated to ordinary citizens like us, then definitely we will be a lot healthier. So I'd want all of this data that I'll be sharing in many of the podcasts that I'll be sharing on YouTube. You can share it with your friends. Okay? And so in closing, let me just quote Dr. Lee again to end it, because one time he was asked actually in an interview. He is one of the leading scientists and doctors on angiogenesis. And he was asked, now, since you are a doctor and you have finished medical school, what correction would you like to see in the way that medical schools and the students and doctors of today should be putting in their curriculum? And this is his answer. He said, if I had that opportunity to do that, I would have medical schools teach these doctors. They have to learn about food and health. Because he said when he was in medical school, they never really had. And they were always talking about diseases. They never talked about food and health. They were talking of disease. They were concentrating basically on diseases and how pharmaceuticals can treat diseases, which is actually just treating the symptoms, and how food can be used for health. Now think of Hippocrates again, food as medicine. And also at the same time, he said, they should be part of their course in medicine is how to talk to patients. And I'll be sharing that kind of secret in my wellness course, because for the most part, a lot of doctors, they see a lot of patients every day, and they don't get really to know them. They just look at the diagnosis from the machines, and then they prescribe a pharmaceutical drug. They don't really get into the in-depth of the history and the feelings and the emotions of their patient. Not too much time. And he said they don't even are taught how to talk to the patient, because the patient, when you go there, when you're sick, and I've had experience with my parents who both passed away with lingering illnesses, and the ones who were attending to them were not really delving into their whole system. There's nothing quite holistic about it. They just go and see you there, and after a few minutes, they just look at the diagnosis, what's happening here, what's happening there. And Dr. Lee says, we should change all of that. We should upgrade all of these things and include food as medicine, and how to really talk to patients and care for them. Okay? Now, there are other systems in the world that includes Ayurveda, which actually does that in Chinese medicine. They do that. They're not just a practicing doctor, a Chinese doctor or a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine doesn't do that. They have to find out because they know that everything is connected to everything else. So if there is a cardiovascular problem, then definitely it doesn't just, they don't just concentrate on the heart, because everything is connected to everything else, including the emotions, past trauma of the patient, and other variables there. And so that's what Dr. William Li would suggest for colleges or universities that teach medicine, and also for current doctors of today. Because somehow he has gone beyond that, because the doctor said he's quite lacking the things that he had learned when he was in school. And so he added other things, which makes the modern medicine that we would like to see a more holistic and humanistic, humane doctor. So the doctor of the future, somebody said this, the doctor of the future will not be prescribing pharmaceuticals. They'll be prescribing food, actually. They'll tell you the different kinds of food. And I hope that comes to pass, friends. Okay, so with that, let me now say thank you for being here. I hope to see you in the next episodes of Wellness and Longevity. Stay safe, take care of your health, eat more plant-based food, sleep better, take care of your emotions. And I hope to see you again during our next episode. This is Talk Wellness. Danny Quinto saying, see you. Stay tuned. Bye. God bless you.